Good morning and welcome. We have regressed back to the 20th century this morning, where we are going to have a service where we're going to use the hymnals and the order of service. So make sure you have one, and I invite you to turn in the hymnal to our morning song, number 66, our opening hymn. These are only hymns that we can sing in June. So we're not really familiar with them, but they're actually very simple tunes, and the choir is going to help us. So I invite you to stand and join in singing our opening hymn.
Please join me in the recitation of our covenant. Enrich differences and join together in our search for truth. We covenant with ourselves and each other to seek truth in a spirit of love, to strive for justice, and to serve others with a joyful heart.
I invite you to turn and greet your neighbor and say good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Roger. My name is Marva Williams, and I'm the worship associate this morning. I'm joined by Reverend Roger Fritz, our interim minister, and Christy Bouchier, who is our director of religious education. I'm almost 66, okay? If you are viewing this service on Zoom, please remember that you can activate closed captioning if that's helpful for you. And if you would like to talk to others after the service, please stay on for virtual coffee hour. After church this Sunday, we are having our annual church picnic. So we will see you all there. This is our all-church picnic sponsored by the UUCDC Board of Directors, and we thank them. Hamburgers, hot dogs, turkey, and veggie burgers will be provided, and we want you at that picnic. Please join us with our centering song. Is that printed for me?
You'll just have to, if you don't know, just hum along. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping green spirits of trees and the blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. Chrissy?
Each Sunday, we gather together in community and we bring with us whatever joys and sorrows we have in our hearts. Now is the time in our service where we have the opportunity to drop a stone into a bowl of water. The stone symbolizes those joys and sorrows that we let go into the bowl, and the ripples symbolize the way our community carries and holds those joys and sorrows together. All may participate in this ritual. If you are joining us on Zoom, you may put your joys and sorrows in the chat. I'm going to drop 2 stones this morning. One, the traditional stone that we drop for the joys and concerns of those on Zoom and those who are not here today, and one, a stone of joy for our amazing tech team who got our screens working again.
I don't know the author of this prayer. I found it on that wonderful device, the World Wide Web. Spirit of life, look down on us, your humble tourist servants, who are about to travel this earth, taking photographs, posting on social media, buying souvenirs, and walking around in drip-dry underwear. We beseech you, O God, to see that our plane is on time, our luggage is not lost, and our overweight baggage goes unnoticed. Protect us from surly and unscrupulous taxi drivers, avarice porters, and unlicensed guides. Give us this day divine guidance in the selection of our hotels, that we may find our reservations honored, our rooms made up, and the hot water running from the correct tap. We pray that our mobile phone is charged and that there is no message waiting from our children that would force us to cancel the rest of our trip. Lead us, dear God, to good, inexpensive restaurants where the food is superb, the waiters friendly, and the wine included in the price of the meal. Give us the wisdom to tip correctly. Forgive us for under-tipping out of ignorance and over-tipping out of fear. May the natives love us for who we are and not for our credit cards. Grant us the strength to visit the museums, the cathedrals, palaces, and the natural wonders listed as musts in the guidebook. And if perchance we skip a historic monument to take a nap after lunch, have mercy on us. For our flesh is weak. And when our voyage is over and we return to our loved ones, grant us the favor of finding a willing audience for our photographs and a sympathetic ear for our stories, so that our lives as travelers shall not have been in vain. Amen. Let's sing Spirit of Life. Spirit of life.
In honor of Pride Month, the Share the Plate recipient for June is the Attic Youth Center, which works to create opportunities for LGBTQ youth to develop into well-rounded adults. You can text your donation to the number provided on the screen. Also, there are boxes at the back of the sanctuary where you can leave checks and cash. Thank you very much.
Good morning. So our Time for All Ages today is something I would call a modern fable. I can't find the exact author of this writing, this story. It shows up in a lot of places online, and sometimes I see it listed as like a Brazilian folktale, a Mexican folktale. But in some of those versions, one of the characters is an investment banker. And so I haven't seen a lot of folk tales with investment bankers, so I'm thinking this is one of those modern tales that people like to pretend is an old folk tale. One day, a fisherman was lying on the beach. He was lying on the beach on the sand. It was just around the start of sunset. So the sand was warm, but the breeze was starting to cool a little bit. Can you feel that? Can you imagine? Imagine that feeling, the sand on the backs of your arms and legs, still a little warm, the cool breeze. You can hear the sound of the waves as they hit the shore. Maybe you hear the sound of a bird. In front of you, you can see the colors of the sky begin to change in the sunset. Such a relaxing time. The fisherman was laying there just like that. He had his fishing line propped next to him with one line out into the surf. And he was just waiting. If a fish came, he would notice it start to wiggle and he would get to work. But in the meantime, he was enjoying where he was and what he was doing. Now, a businessman was coming down the beach, maybe an investment banker. I'm not sure what kind of businessman he was. But he was coming down the beach after a long and stressful day, and he was going for a walk to de-stress. In my mind, he was probably checking his Fitbit to get in his active minutes in his effort to de-stress. And he was walking down the beach, and he came upon the fisherman lying there with just one line out into the surf. And he thought to himself, look at this man who is so unproductive. Just laying here doing nothing. He has just one line. You can't even feed a family with that level of work, that level of effort towards fishing. What is this man doing? And the businessman walked up to the fisherman and he said, you should be working rather than lying on the beach. And the fisherman looked up at the businessman and said, and what would my reward be? Well, the businessman said, if you were working, if you had more lines out and were catching more fish, you could earn more money. And the fisherman said, and what would my reward be? And the businessman said, well, this was like basic business. He didn't understand why he had to explain this to this man. But he said, well, if you had more lines out and earned more money, you could buy more fishing equipment. You could buy more nets, and then you could catch more fish and earn more money. And the fisherman said, and what would my reward be? the businessman was getting very frustrated, and he said, well, if you had more nets, and you caught more fish, and you earned more money, you could buy a boat. And if you had a boat, you could go out into the deeper water, where there are more fish, and you could catch more fish, and you could earn more money. And the fisherman said, and what would my reward be? And the businessman said, if you had a boat and earned more money, you could then get more fish, you could buy a bigger boat, you could hire people to work on your boat, and they could do more of the work, and you would earn more money. And the fisherman said, and what would my reward be? And the businessman said, he was getting like red in the face. He was so angry at this point. He said, well, if you had a boat and you earned more money, you could buy a fleet of boats. You could have contracts with stores and restaurants. You could have an entire staff working for you. You could earn so much money that you could be laying on a beach just watching the sunset and doing nothing. And the fisherman looked up at him and said, what do you think I am doing right now? Thank you for listening to my story.
So I've never been one of those people who needs to be convinced to take a vacation. I've often felt that my work was getting in the way of my life. And unlike Martha Stewart, I don't denigrate the French for taking off the month of August. But I also realize that there are many people across France and across our world who are lucky to have one day paid off. So vacation, rest is a privilege. So vacations are a great time to visit other places, to open your mind, to learn about different cultures, to visit museums and to see historic sites and to talk to local people. And it helps to open our minds and to feel less exhausted, to rest. It's also a time when our minds slow down and we can open our minds to truths that might be hard otherwise to hear. Vacations improve our mental health. They help us to deal with stress, and this is important for me because I have high blood pressure. And it's also just a really important way to slow down. So even though I sort of had this feeling about being able to separate work from my life, over 30 years ago, it was just that inability that I had that actually brought me to the first Unitarian congregation that I joined in Pittsburgh. I realized that my work had become my life and that the only friends I had were work friends. And that religious community helped me to slow down and to feel fellowship with other people. So, like many of us, I have to learn lessons over and over. And 5 years ago, when David and I moved to Delaware County, I was recovering from a bike accident that I experienced a couple years before that was causing excruciating pain. I saw multiple doctors while still in Chicago and a physical therapist. I even took a few weeks off of work, and I was not able to recover from that accident. And also, I began to realize that I had a great deal of fear of pain that was almost as bad as the pain itself. So moving to Philadelphia, I left my job, and I was resting. It was wonderful to be with my husband again, to gain that peace and support. I found a really good doctor and an excellent physical therapist, and within a few months, my pain was reduced, and I began to feel better. And one of the things I learned about this is that sometimes we need time. We need time to rest and reflect and in order to be able to move on. So I'm now going to close with a poem from the book Becoming by Kayla Parker. It's an edited book, and this poem is called Spiritual History, and it was written by Mark Ballatini. And when you hear the word silence in the poem, please also reflect on rest and peace. Spiritual history. Let my body remember. Let my hands and feet remember. Let my breath remember. Those who have come before me, those who have become before us. Didn't Muhammad wait quietly in his cave? And didn't Jesus sigh silently by the blue lake? And didn't Joan Lee, didn't she sit in silence, thinking about what to do before doing it? And what was Siddhartha, the Buddha, doing anyway under that tree, if not just sitting quietly? And Susan B. Anthony, didn't she push back from her desk, take a breath now and then? And Florence Nightingale, didn't she put down her nurse's hat and think silently about what to write in her essay on mysticism. And Sophia Foss, didn't she stop telling stories sometimes and just sit there? And didn't Black Elk just notice the sunlight glancing off his chair sometimes? And Starhawk, does she only talk and write, or does she too keep silence? Let us remember them with all our bodies. Let us remember them with the silence they too knew.
Marva, thank you for that reflection. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chrissy, for that story. This will be the last time I will be here when the choir is performing. So, choir, it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with you in worship for the past year. Thank you. Well, here we are on June 11th, and summer is here. Schools are getting out, and vacations are beginning. It's a wonderful time of year. What have I got this on for? Yeah. So what childhood memories do you have of June? I remember smelling the air, walking home at the end of the last day of school at the beginning of summer. It was, and it still is, one of the greatest smells I have ever encountered, the smell of freedom in the summer. I look forward to a summer of swimming in the public pools, of feeling that cold water on my skin on a hot summer day. I look forward to visiting the public library and checking out books and having the freedom to read what I wanted to read, not what the school required. It was so liberating. Perhaps my memories stimulate your memories about summer vacations. Your mind may have already drifted off to recall your own memories of June. Perhaps for you, a childhood vacation was a trip to the beach, or a camping trip to a lake, or a river to swim or to fish in. I hope you have positive memories of such times. Now, unfortunately, the United States continues to be the only advanced economy that does not guarantee its workers paid vacations. Australia and New Zealand require employees to grant workers a minimum of 20 paid vacation days, 4 weeks per year. The European Union workers are guaranteed by law at least 20 paid vacation days per year, 4 weeks, with some European countries going beyond that, mandating by law as many as 30 days, that is 6 weeks of vacation per year. But in our country, there is no legal requirement of a particular amount of vacation. The average worker in the private sector receives 12 and a half paid vacation days and 6 paid holidays a year, far less than in any other advanced economy. And 1 in 4 Americans, 25% of Americans, are part-time or self-employed persons, and they have no paid vacation and no paid holidays. Well, why is this? It's the Puritan religion. Back in 1620, the Puritans arrived on this continent. They arrived in December in Massachusetts. It was cold. They had to immediately start building structures. They couldn't take any time off. They had to keep warm in the cold of winter. They came from England, where they were disgusted with the behavior of people who drank too much alcohol and spent too little time doing the work that needed to be done. For them, surviving that first winter, it was necessary that they worked incredibly hard. Even then, half of them died before the winter was over. To survive, they developed a belief system about God that they have given to us and we have inherited. The Puritans told each other that God wanted them to work hard. Work was a means of glorifying God. In performing daily productive labor, they believed that they were following God's plan, doing God's work. Puritan ministers exhorted their congregations, don't waste God's precious time. Cards, theater, dancing, they were all forbidden. The Puritan work ethic, shaped by Puritan theology, dominated America. But slowly, a few people in America became so wealthy that they didn't have to spend all their time working to survive. These people, they were wealthy merchants in New England and in the Middle Atlantic states. They were the plantation owners in the South. Now, they couldn't take time off from work just for fun without violating the Puritan work ethic. However, they came up with a loophole to get around this, a way to take a vacation. The wealthy merchants and plantation owners got medical doctors to recommend that they visit hot mineral springs, drink the water or bathe in the hot water to improve their health. This was the beginning of American vacation resorts. Europeans had been traveling to various spas since the late Middle Ages to drink the water and soak in the baths. Wealthy Americans followed this pattern. For example, the Stone Inn Hotel was built in 1806 in Bedford, Pennsylvania, near a mineral spring. The hotel, with its mineral-fed indoor pools, was for a time the most popular resort in the United States. Wealthy individuals came to bathe in the water to improve their health. But then a more direct challenge to the Puritan work ethic came from the Unitarians. Unitarians rejected the idea of original sin and argued in favor of the basic goodness of humanity. If we're good, the 19th century Unitarians argued, then it's not a sin for us to enjoy life. In the 1830s, the father of American Unitarianism, William Ellery Channing, preached a sermon in which he declared that man was made to enjoy as well as to labor, and the state of society should be adopted to this principle of human nature. Channing told his congregation that God had implanted a strong desire for recreation after labor and had made us for smiles more than tears. Play was important because it served to preserve the moral order. Unless innocent pleasures were available, Channing warned, people would choose dangerous, even criminal pleasures. Channing said pleasure should refresh instead of exhaust the system and not produce boisterous mirth. He approved of music, of lectures, dancing, and theater. Channing told his congregation that the right sorts of amusement would serve work instead of undermining it. They would send us back to our daily duties, invigorated in body and spirit. A similar message came 20 years later in the 1850s from the Congregational minister. Now, Unitarian and Congregational ministers came out of the Puritan tradition, so they're moving away from that you got to work all the time message. The Congregational minister, Reverend Henry Ward Beecher, in the 1850s, preached that leisure and relaxation could be a way to God. He wrote, "Thus to walk, to read now, and then some noble passage of, to read now and then some noble passage of some great heart, to fall off again to musing, to read again half aloud, or in the murmuring whisper of some holy poetry, thus to be transcendently happy. It is after long labor that such periods of rest become doubly sweet. For unwearied hours one drifts among the gentle, joyous sensations of thoughts." Well, to practice what he preached, Reverend Beecher and his family spent a 2-month vacation each summer in Lenox, Massachusetts. As the middle class grew in America in the years after the Civil War, so did the number of people who had paid vacations. In part because Washington, D.C. is so miserably hot in the summer, the federal government allowed its office workers a full month vacation each year. But most businesses only offered their white-collar workers a week a year, and blue-collar workers received no paid vacation until the 1920s. Now, Methodists responded to this interest in vacations by building religious resorts in places like Ocean Grove, New Jersey, and Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Chautauqua was founded by Methodists in 1874 in New York State, and it became the most famous of these educational resorts. They were inexpensive resorts with restrictions: no swimming on Sundays, no drinking, no gambling, no card playing, and no dancing. These religious resorts offered educational programs for children and adults. So this is still in the puritanical theme that you can't go out and really have fun, but you can take a week off to go hear lectures about God. Unitarian and Universalists established summer camps at Ferry Beach in Maine, Star Island off the coast of New Hampshire, and Murray Grove, about 80 miles east of here on the New Jersey coast. These religious resorts played a critical role in easing the emerging middle class into vacationing. At these places, people felt safe from the temptations of alcohol or gambling. The self-improvement resorts provided protection from the evil of idleness that was still associated with leisure. Many believed that they should not waste their time that they had away from work, but should instead engage in purposeful pursuits, such as listening to these educational lectures. Tourism, the travel to see things, also slowly became popular in the 19th century. At first, the primary destination for tourists was Niagara Falls or the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Over time, places like Philadelphia also became popular sightseeing destinations. Taking off work to visit Independence Hall was not considered an idle activity because it instilled pride in our country. Tourists responded to the Puritan work ethic by giving vacation a purpose. Tourists visited natural wonders and old buildings to add to their stock of knowledge, their experience, their wisdom. Yes. This helped provide a religious justification for another kind of vacation, the camping trip. In 1869, a Boston Congregational minister, the Reverend William Murray, wrote a book called Adventures in the Wilderness, or Camp Life in the Adirondacks, in which he claimed that God wanted us to go camping in the wilderness to improve our physical and spiritual health. He wrote that camping in the Adirondacks could cure almost anything. The book went through 8 printings its first year and set off a stampede of visitors. Many, unfortunately, found their experience camping less satisfying than Reverend Murray had described. In the Adirondacks, campers encountered blood-sucking black flies and day after day of rain. In the summer of 1870, newspapers reported stories of the mishaps and misadventures of what they call Reverend Murray's fools. Still, the minister made his point. His book popularized the word vacation, the act of vacating your city home. Following into the Second World War, we saw the invention of new ways to take a vacation. Organized crime constructed Las Vegas, which became a mecca for people who failed at math. Disneyland was built in Anaheim, California, and opened in 1955. Disney World was opened in Orlando in 1971. It is a sign of Unitarian Universalist Puritan roots that we still hold on to, that although there are wonderful convention centers in Las Vegas, Anaheim, and Orlando, we've never held a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in any entertainment capital. In keeping with our Puritan heritage, we meet in industrial cities like Pittsburgh. Now, in the 21st century, Americans continue to engage in a love-hate battle with our vacations. We want to take them, and we fear the consequences. Hard work is the virtue that built our nation. We fear that if we go away from work for too long, things may fall apart. Or if we go away from work for too long, everything may go fine without us. As a result, 500 years after the Puritans, adults who work full-time are given on average 12.5 days off, but they don't take it all. On average, they take only 11 of the vacation days that they're allocated. However, is all work and no play the purpose of life? Now, the Hebrew Testament says clearly that even God rested on the seventh day. And there's also a New Testament example of vacationing. It's hidden away in the Gospel according to Mark. For months, the disciples preached, they healed the sick, they cast out demons, they fed the multitudes with fish and loaves of bread, and naturally, they were very tired. Then it's recorded in Mark 6, 30, and 32. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a quiet place, all by yourselves, and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a quiet place by themselves. Therefore, not only God, but also Jesus was aware of burnout and the need to take a break. The Gospel of Mark grants you permission to get away to a quiet place to rest for a while. Now, I won't tell you what you should do on a vacation. That is your choice. I will only say that as your minister, I think that the Spirit of life wants you to take some time to relax and enjoy yourselves. Pleasure, if it doesn't harm others, is a good thing. So this summer, I encourage you to take a vacation. Shed your role as a worker. Rediscover who you are when you are not at work. Gain perspective on your life. Renew your relationships with your friends and family. And finally, have fun. Let's sing our closing hymn. I invite you to join with me in our closing benediction. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. And for those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Blessed be. As you exit to our picnic, our choir has one more